You hear that noise? It's running water. I've been learning a lot about watering your garden. But the way that the whole thing works is if you're watering your garden, sometimes you maybe inherited that garden and that garden was full of a bunch of weeds. So you gotta like tear everything out, and maybe you get to rebuild the garden, or you get to start from total scratch and build a garden that is just what you've built. But as the garden begins to grow, you're gonna find out that you get more weeds that pop up. Well, there's something beautiful about the weeds, and it's all how you look at it. There's a lot of them that push out nutrients, and maybe they're chickweed. There's something else that's actually edible, and nobody's explained that to you. But when you go through these gardens that are not maintained, well, it's up to you to like dive in and make the happenings happen so that you have a fresh garden that can grow. So if you do want to weed that garden to be able to start a fresh garden to plant new things, well, it seems as though you need to go to the root to pull the weed out, like what is going on here. To contrast from that and say, well, something like this, well, it's all the perspective on how you look at it, because maybe what somebody classifies that plant as a weed, that's just an external observation. So the real gardening only kind of happens with the happenings and the experience and the diving in and starting to remove the different layers so you can see what's real. So if you take real and you flip it around in the syllables, it's just a layer. So I'm here maintaining and helping to maintain a certain garden that is not my garden, but could possibly inherit the garden. But the concept that I'm realizing is the more distractions and the more external happenings that are not just the act of gardening or the taking the action in going in and figuring out what's going on with your garden, you can get lost in it all. And sometimes it creates a deep and heavy fear. And maybe that fear is like, let's just say, for instance, that fear is kind of like the devil. You know, if you're going on a spiritual thing or whatever it is, at this understanding, and certain symbols, you know, trigger fear, and certain happenings trigger fear. But when you're taking action, you become in the present moment. And once you're in that present moment, well, you're experiencing love, because you're not getting too far ahead of yourself. You're not getting too far behind. You're not outside of the happening. You're actually just in the process of being. So I'm going through a lot of that stuff right now, and I figure with what I'm going through and experiencing, if I put it out there, you know, it's going to help other folk that are going through that. So, yeah, those are the happenings that are happening currently. I'm learning a lot about fixing up vans, fixing up gardens. I'm doing all this outside of my environment because I've been scared to do the things and deal with the things that are happening in my environment at this time. So it's actually been a blessing, because I'm building the confidence now to go back and make this garden completely self-sufficient, which is this garden right here, this whole thing. And in hindsight, all the bad stuff's just as rad as the good, what's happened along the journey, because at least it's a place to partake in the happenings of life and start to bring your garden back to life. So as I'm experiencing this and bringing this garden back to life. When it feels right, I'm going to keep sharing these things, and let's see where the process takes us. So there's a transmission from frequency happening of the radio David, which is the rambling hobo, which is whatever you want to call it. It's your thing. I'm just putting it out there in the universe because that's what is. So go water your garden, pull the weeds out, but remember, when you water your garden, that's usually when the weeds come back. So maybe the whole thing is in the process of maintaining the garden and building forms of structure and discipline that work for you in your own garden. So yeah, enjoy. Is it coffee time or grease or cold? Who knows? Take care of yourselves, be kind, and keep up all the good.